Welcome back to my little channel. Today I'm going to do a little talk about white privilege and why people keep pushing for its existence and whether it really does exist. And if it doesn't, why do you think people keep pushing for it? And if it does exist, why, oh why, haven't I got any? Okay, so let's first take a look at what a lot of people claim white privilege is. Basically, it tells us that in the Western world, white people have more chances than people of color. And that is because they're white. But it's not only in the Western world that they claim this. They claim this is worldwide. Okay, is this true? Well, let's look at America, because everything seems to happen in America. In America, white people, on average, have better education than black people. Is this true? Because that sounds like an assumption to me. Well, let's look it up, shall we? Downstairs you will see a link to a PDF which basically breaks down school and the kids attending school. And we see that on average there's a decline in white people going to school. But that's probably because there's a decline in white people being born. Can we blame this on racism? No, I don't think so. But we see an increase in black people going to school. No, well, that's not really true. We see a small decline in black people too, though not as big. We see a huge increase in Hispanic and in Asian. Okay, so there's that. So then do Hispanic people profit from white privilege? I'm pretty sure Asian people don't, even though they are a slightly growing group. So, are Hispanics white as well? Well, that's the thing. It depends. Because sometimes, when the story is negative for white people, then yeah, Hispanics are white too. Remember that Zimmerman shooting? The guy shot Trayvon Martin after the dude... Well, never mind that. I'll not go into it too far. But yeah, it was a black guy being shot. Therefore, Zimmerman was a white guy. He was Hispanic, but he was also white. But in other moments, Hispanics is its own category. For example, if we look into these school numbers, we see a rise in Hispanic students. Well, wait a second, we see a decline in white people. How does that add up? If they're both white people, then it's roughly equal. But if they're both different categories, should they then also be different categories when it comes to privilege? Points to ponder. The thing with this identity politic thing is that it's very difficult to keep track of because, yeah, it changes on a whim. I guess that's because it's based on a whim. I don't know. This study shows a lot of things, but basically what it also shows is that not your skin color is predominantly a deciding factor in how school goes for you, but your background. So if you're a black person and you live with your father and mother and they try to give you a decent upbringing as good as they can, and they'll tell you to go to school and they'll make it work, and etc., 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 chances are you're a black person going to school making it work. We see the same things for whites, Hispanics, and Asians. We see it mostly for Asians though, because within the Asian community, the family is a strong part of it. Now what we do also see, and this we see with poor white people, but we see this also with poor black people, single parent families struggle. Now here's the kicker. White people have single parent families too, but not as much as black people do. The problem isn't their skin color. The problem is the single parent family. Is it white privilege that you have your father and your mother? Well, no, because among Hispanics, father and mothers are quite common. Asians, father and mother are quite common. And in all fairness, amongst the black people, there are plenty of people that still have a father-mother household. But amongst black people, it is also more common to just have a mother. For whatever reasons. I'm not going to go into the reasoning, doesn't matter. And we see the same with poor white people. If there's a father and mother in the situation, whether you're poor or not, there's still a bigger chance that you will ground better. But if you're in a single parent household, as a poor white kid, yeah, your future is pretty difficult as well. Wait a second. So this means that for black people who are single household parents and kids from that single household, they have it just as good or as bad, if you wish, as white people. But that's not logical, because white privilege. So where did that white privilege go? Well, we know there are lots of papers out there on the single parent household, whether you look from it from a socio-economic point of view, or from a racial point of view, or from whatever point of view you want to bring in. We see constantly that single parent households have it worse than complete households. The nuclear family is something that works. Why do we see a decline in the nuclear family? Is the nuclear family white privilege? Well, no. I mean, there is nothing that says black people can't be part of a nuclear family, or Asians, or Hispanics, or Native American, or whatever. So, no, this is also not white privilege. Well, then it must be the history of American people, mustn't it? This is usually where black people start talking about how they are victimized because, well, slavery. Yeah, but slavery didn't start with black people in the USA. In all fairness, the first slaves in America were white, and the first chattel slave owner of black slaves was a black man, because before he owned black slaves were indentured serfs, as were a lot of white slaves, but not all, because we already had chattel slavery in America. We didn't really call it that, and they were the Irish. So why then do we still talk about white privilege? Because the Irish were white, weren't they? And they weren't privileged. The Polish people, the German people, the Russian people, the Swedish people, the Finnish people, all of them went to America, some of them as indentured serfs. What was their privilege? And the worst part of it is this. Most of the black people in America now have no genetic link or family ties to American slavery. So where does that part of white privilege come? Well, never mind the fact that most white people do not have genetical heritage or family ties with slave owners. I mean, there's a bigger chance that a white American is linked in his family to a slave than to a slave owner. Nobody cares, though. And let us not forget that when it comes to slavery worldwide, it's white people that tried to end it. And in the Western world, it has ended. You know where slavery is still okay? In Africa. Not all of Africa, but parts of Africa, slavery, not a big deal. Oh, some parts of Asia and the Middle East. They all don't really care that much about slavery. So why are we still telling white people that they are to blame for slavery when they're not really to blame for it? But they were the only one that gave blood to end it. Remember, in America there was the Civil War, and one of the things they fought about was slavery. South Africa became property of England because, well, the Dutch were kicked out more or less, and the first thing they did there was end slavery. I could give you more examples, but it doesn't fit the narrative of the evil white man now, does it? Funny enough, though, if we look at places like Zimbabwe or Nigeria, they still have slavery. Hell, they actually kill white people, kill the Boers, which is South African, I know, but they did this in Zimbabwe too. They attack farmers because they are white and killed them and disowned their land. And now they're basically trying to hire white farmers to please come and work the lands because apparently they're not doing it well. So first they kill the farmers and then they ask them to come back. Not that they can have their land back, by the way. No, they can come and work. That's it. But yeah, no, white privilege, right? I mean, they get killed because they provide food for a country, and that's white privilege. I could, of course, give many other examples of why I think white privilege is bullshit. But can you give me one example of where you think white privilege is real? Now, I had this whole discussion planned on history this and economic that, but I'm going to finish my video here because it's going to get very long, very winded, and it doesn't really say anything. Because I cannot disprove white privilege. Because I don't know what your proof of white privilege is. So you keep saying that there is white privilege, and because you say it, it must be true. Well, in that case, give me evidence. Now, I know white privilege isn't something that is easily seen. But the thing with things that aren't easily seen is that they're not really an issue. But somehow white privilege is an issue. Then it must be easily seen. It must be easy to provide simple evidence. So please, give me something to put my teeth in to say, you know what, you're right. Or, you know what, this is why you're wrong. Anyway, thank you for your time. My ramble is more or less over. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And as always, criticism, whether it's positive or negative, is more than welcome.